Every time you go to the doctor, they're just like, everything's fine, everything's fine. No, it's not. You know when your body's not right. So that's why, I found the missing keys in my body. And when I found functional diagnostic nutrition, I was overjoyed because they gave me a lot more of the biochemistry behind it. And they gave me the training in labs so that I can look inside the body of somebody.
Today's masterclass is on stress and your body. Our guest today is Marianne May, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner who has been focused on healthy living for over 20 years. She specializes in helping people find the missing keys to their health with an open heart and mind. She will help you de-stress and optimize your hormones and energy so you reclaim your healthful, happy self. Welcome, Mary.
Oh, thank you, Anita. It's really nice to be here.
My pleasure. So what took you on your journey of functional diagnostic nutrition? Was it something you needed or you knew there was a gap in the market for? I mean, we all need health, let's face it.
Right. And I guess from when I was young, I was always very focused on it. Like the shows I watched were all medically based. And I just, really thought the human body was amazing. And it wasn't really until there was kind of a dovetail of a couple things. My mother got diagnosed with ALS, which is a neurodegenerative disease. And I got pregnant right after we learned of her diagnosis. And I decided this baby is all about the inputs I'm putting in me. So I really kind of looked at, we were looking at the end of a life and the beginning of a life, which was really kind of interesting. And it just made me think there were other people in my family subsequently that ended up having ALS. Okay. So it wasn't that we had the familial gene they knew about, but there might have been a new one. And so I decided from an epigenetic standpoint, that is the genes we have are hardwired. Whether you have genes or not is not really the issue. It's your lifestyle and all the inputs, whether you smoke, drink, exercise, sleep well, eat healthy foods, all those things either turn genes on or turn genes off. And I'm all about trying to turn the good ones on and keep the bad ones off. So, between, starting a life and learning about, the epigenetics, that was my turn into looking at health. And I stumbled onto, I've been graced with having a thin body most of the time, but that doesn't mean that you're healthy inside. And so, it's just a matter of, I looked at different, like the zone diet initially was what got me to lose the little bit of weight I had from my babies. And that was just eating according to macronutrients. And I thought, wow, this is great. I ended up realizing after I went through the corporate world and everything that I wanted to do something different. And I wanted to return back to my roots of the body. And so I did a couple of different health coaching programs, to be honest, and I really didn't have the nuts and bolts of what I really wanted. And when I found functional diagnostic nutrition, I was overjoyed because they gave me a lot more of the biochemistry behind it. And they gave me the training in labs so that I can look inside the body of somebody. And it started with me. I found out, my stress was way up and I thought, how is that possible? I feel like I'm doing all the things to keep my stress down. And I had things in my gut and I had the liver problems and I was just like, what the heck? So, that's all in the last couple of years that I figured that out. So it's just like, okay, like I said, you can feel like you're doing great, but there's secrets inside that, I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know where to go. And every time you go to the doctor, they're just like, everything's fine, everything's fine.
Yes.
No, it's not. When your body's not right. So that's why, I found the missing keys in my body through this, and I'm helping other people do the same thing. So I'm really, passionate about giving people the skills and the knowledge that they can have a lot of impact over their lives and get to making better, healthy choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's finding those keys for yourself or going to someone that's going to recognize them and actually help you. But explain more about stress and your body.
Well, stress is, we all know that stress doesn't do a lot for our bodies.
Yes.
It does bad things. I mean, when we're in a stressful situation, you always hear about the saber-toothed tiger or whatever. We have a stress response that, basically stops all the non-survival things our body needs to do. Your stomach, your digestion stops, this stops, but your heart gets, the heart rate goes up, your blood starts going all to the ends of your body so that you can actually run or do something, and you get very acutely aware and you're focused. That's that stress, like, okay, we need it. And, we get it. And then all of a sudden, after the event, we've got these negative feedback loops that take all that stuff out of our body, so we resume our restful state. And so, when you look about stress, there's that stress. You've got stress that's eustress, which is more about like when you're jumping out of a plane. That's exciting stress. You're like, okay, I did this, I'm going to do it. And then you jump. And so, as soon as you're done, you resume back to a restful state. So you've got those kinds of things. And then, of course, there's another stress, to be honest, called hormesis that they're talking about. And these are the stressors to your body that you're doing to push it, whether it's intermittent fasting, or if it's hot, cold, or if it's saunas, or if it's, running a certain amount of, you're stressing your body to make it stronger or to get rid of the bad cells in your body. That's a different stress than the chronic stress that most people are running under and causing problems in their body.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to put it. And how can someone help themselves or optimize their hormones to help them?
Well, it's important to realize how how stress kind of runs in your body. There is a HPA axis that some people learn about, and it's really about the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenals. And adrenals are the little organs on top of your kidneys, but they do a lot of work for you. They pump out the cortisol, the adrenaline, which is also epinephrine and norepinephrine. They're, different places call them different things, but they're the same thing. And they also have other hormones that lead to your sex hormones, the DHEA, and there's different roles for all those things. So when you think about stress in your body, what do you think? Where are the stresses that you think come to your body? Do you have ideas yourself? What are the stresses in our bodies?
I think, like, for me, it would be if I'm under pressure and I've got a deadline, and I would think it's in my head and my stomach.
It's the mental and perceived stresses, right?
Yes.
But we also have stresses that are in our bodies, like if we break a bone, or if we are out of alignment, that's a stress in our body. There are also a lot of other stresses that come into our body that are hidden stresses. There are hormone stresses. There's immune stresses. There's detoxification stresses, digestion stresses, energy producing stresses, neural pathway stresses. So when you go back to the HPA axis, you're saying, oh, we all know about many people know about the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic. It's always the sympathetic that's blamed for all the stress, and the parasympathetic is the rest and digest. We all have those, and that's what keeps us in balance, right? But when you have too much stress from all these other sources, that's when you're out of alignment. And what happens is cortisol is produced. It goes, your hypothalamus communicates stress from all these different things. It then tells your pituitary, you've got to alert the adrenals to start pumping this stuff out, right? So then you've got the cortisol and the adrenaline pumping out. And so what happens then is that these, in order for your hypothalamus to tell, it needs the inputs from, neurotransmitters, which need the right proteins. So that gets into the whole digestion thing. If you don't have enough hydrochloric acid in your stomach, or your liver's not right, you're not able to get the amino acids that drive the neurotransmitters that turns on the hypothalamus. So oftentimes people would say, oh, I've got adrenal fatigue. Well, maybe it's not the adrenal fatigue. Maybe you've got the messengers above that are not working right. And so then it goes down to the pituitary. Well, is the pituitary getting all of the cofactors it needs to develop and send the message to the adrenals? And so then you've got the adrenals. And so there's two major balances in the adrenals. I mentioned cortisol comes out and DHEA. And so cortisol is the hormone that you can have a lot of stress for a while because it's an anti-inflammatory, it's a pain reliever, it gives you blood sugar. So when you're in stress and you're at the height of your stress, you can feel great. You can feel like on top of the world. You've got all these things, your deadlines, your everything, and everything's working great. Your body's pumping it out because it can. It can give you all the stuff you need. But when that doesn't turn off, your body is starting to get in trouble, because what you have when cortisol's high, DHEA, which is the grandfather to all the sex hormones in your body, that goes down. So when you have stress way up, it inhibits DHEA from doing its stuff. And what DHEA does, not only for that, but it also rebuilds your body, especially your muscles. So you can see that when cortisol is really high and DHEA is low, you've got stress going way out of control. And then all of a sudden your sex hormones start getting messed up. Well, then you've got other things going on that it could be that when these things are out of balance, then that lets your gut, everyone says everything starts in the gut. Well, when does your gut get open to having these invaders? It's when it's not ready to defend itself. So when cortisol goes high, one of the big players in your gut is secretory IgA. And so that SIG-A is what keeps your tight junctions in place and everything's really good. But when you're in a high stress mode, all of a sudden what keeps your gut solid goes way down. And so all of a sudden there's areas where invaders can come in. And so that's why, everything from the outside comes through your mouth and out the backside, but it goes into your gut. And so that tight junction of your gut is what keeps the outside from the inside. And so when you've got high stress, your inside is now open because there's only one layer between your inside and your outside. And so when those things open up, and one of the big problems with people is gluten.
Yes.
Gluten opens those up. But if you have a lot of secretory IgA, you eat gluten, they might go open and shut really quick because your body's in a place where it can be solid. Now, I'm not talking about people who have celiac. They can't have it because it breaks them down. But everyone has, the potential to have gluten cause problems. So it all goes back to the whole cortisol pumping out that's causing all these problems. And the way we look at it at Functional Diagnostic Nutrition is you've got a hub and spoke, if you will. And in the middle, it's metabolic chaos. And all these stressors come into play. And those arrows go both ways. They can either be causing it or the result of it, which is why you have to look at the whole body. It's like a symphony. You've got one, the drums are going too fast. Then everybody's going to start trying to, catch up with it. But then it's going to sound bad. Well, that's the whole thing in us. And to be very honest, food is a big part of things, because when you eat things that are upsetting, you can cause stress from food that you have a problem with. And so all of a sudden you're eating something that isn't right for you. Well, that gets your cortisol up. I found that when I did my food sensitivity, I had all these foods that I'm just like, are you kidding me? Carrots. Who would think carrots
Oh,
would be
carrots.
Carrots were the highest thing that were bothering me. And I was having a
Wow.
lot of shredded carrots and curry and all this stuff. And I thought, okay, maybe that's why my cortisol is so high, So there's so many elements to figuring out what's going on in your body. And doctors aren't looking at that.
Yeah,
Because every
definitely.
time I went in, I was just, oh, your numbers are great. You're doing great. You're this, you're that. And I'm just like, okay, but I know something's not right. I'm not waking up fresh in the morning, or I'm not doing this. And I don't feel good when, after 2 hours of eating, I feel a little funny, and, you don't know why.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. There are so many ways to look at stress in our body. So when you say, what can you do? There's a lot of uncovering that you have to figure out in order to figure it out. You've got to uncover all the obstacles that are causing the problems.
And absolutely beautifully put. And I like your analogy of what you eat is such a big part, and people don't realize that.
Well, a great way to look at it, to be honest, is epigenetically. If you look at the bee population, everyone knows about the queen bee and then the worker bees, right? They are the same DNA that they are made. They are the exact same genetically. They're like twins, if you will. They're all the same. But what happens is the worker bees are given pollen and nectar to eat, okay? The queen bee gets royal jelly. The queen lives years. Worker bees live weeks.
Gosh.
We need to figure out what our personal royal jelly is, because everybody is unique biochemically and genetically. We're all different. What you eat is different than what I'm going to eat, which is what's different than my daughter's going to eat. Even though we're all related as humans, and even within families, we have differences that really have to be looked at to be as healthy as we can, because there's so many things coming in. And I didn't even get to all the stresses that we're getting from dirty air, dirty water, the chemicals that are sprayed on foods. Those things cause a lot of problems to us too. So there's so many stressors coming that you really have to tune in. And, some people are really sensitive to EMFs. Coming off of cell phones and stuff. I was just talking to someone yesterday who had an electric car, and her dog wouldn't jump in the car because it was sensitive to the EMFs of an electric car. I didn't even think about EMFs from an electric car. She said that when she got a different car, she said, her battery on her hybrid was done, so she got a regular car. The dog jumped in, and he would jump she had an electric car. Every time someone would come in that didn't have one, he would readily jump in the car. So it's just, you don't know if what your problem is from EMFs. I mean, there's things you can wear now that will keep you clear from that.
Yes.
And you just have to figure it out, because one of the products that I tried didn't work for me. It worked for my sister. So there's another one that I can wear. You know what I mean? So it's just so amazing how much we have to look, because it's not the carefree living of 100 years ago. 100 years ago, people knew what foods to eat. They were instinctive with, having real food. There wasn't a store where there were all these packaged foods that you can't even understand what's in them. So if you can stay away from packaged foods, and you can have better oils, the oils, the seed, and, the seed oils that we're all eating, and the corn oil and all that, that is so inflammatory to our bodies. You really have to look at having just the best inputs. And I only use to cook, I use ghee, sometimes butter, coconut
Yes.
oil, and avocado oil. And I use EVU, or extra virgin olive oil, when I'm not cooking it at too high of a temperature, because it breaks down the
Yes.
polyphenols if it's over 350. So that's more of, when you're just using it in salad dressings and stuff like that. So there's so much information to know, and there's so much misinformation out there about, everybody needs to be keto, everybody needs to be paleo, everybody needs to do this. It's all unique. And if you can start eating food that's real food, and
Mm.
then think of how you're feeling 2 hours after that. Do you feel energetic? Do you feel hungry? Do you feel like you're craving something? Do you feel tired? That's the information you're getting from the food 2 hours after. So it's an easier way to think about it, that if you just keep a track of how you feel 2 hours after you eat, you might be getting some good intel from your body.
Yeah, I think that's excellent, because I didn't realize it's by 2 hours later you could realize how your body's feeling. So that's really a good point. And I love your analogy about the bees. I am gluten free, always had a problem, should I say, with gluten. But the thing is, being Asian as well, being brought up on an Asian diet, I mean, we've always had a variety in our diet, and we've been blessed enough to have a lot of vegetables, fruit.
Right.
The thing is now, even the Asian cuisine, the wheat they use, everything's so over manufactured. That's what
Oh,
upsets everyone. They don't realize that. But I could eat that before, but you can't now.
right. And it depends, to be very honest, because they've really changed the wheat product here in America. Not to
Mm,
mention getting it Roundup ready, spraying glyphosate on it. I mean,
mm-hmm.
glyphosate is a huge problem. And, the European Union has been good to block it. I mean,
Yes.
when I traveled with my girls back in, I don't know if it was 2016 or 17, we ended
Mm-hmm.
up going to France, and we were looking all around, and we went to London. We were eating all the things. None of the croissants or the baguettes or any of those things bothered us the way we could eat here in America. And it was all because of glyphosate and the change in the wheat. And so what's really scary about glyphosate, honestly, when you think about your gut bacteria,
Mm-hmm.
we've got more bacteria in our gut and on our body than we do human cells. They live with us very symbiotically. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of the gut bacteria in our body creates like 70% of the serotonin. It creates a lot of neurotransmitters. Other than that, there is a vagal nerve that goes from our gut to our head, so that when you're stressed and you feel it in your gut, that's a
Mm-hmm.
real thing because it's communicating. And so what happens is glyphosate is registered with the EPA or whoever they register their products with as a antibiotic.
Wow.
Well, the antibiotic is used to hit the shikimate pathway in the weeds, okay? And they said, we as humans don't have a shikimate pathway, so it's safe for us. But guess what does? All the bacteria in our gut.
Oh, gosh.
So when you're eating that, that's why antibiotics that we're taking for our health
Mm,
are decimating our gut. And that's why you need to take a really strong probiotic at the same time to try
mm,
and keep the good bacteria populated in your gut. Well, when you're eating glyphosate at every turn, everything in America has gluten or Roundup on it, the soybeans, the
mm.
everything.
Yeah.
And so everybody, including all the kids, are getting glyphosate all the time. And that is killing off the good bacteria and leaving your gut ready for all the pathogens to come in and take root. So, it's no surprise to me that certain diets that eliminate all the glyphosate are really helping kids that have ADHD and autism. I mean, it doesn't clear them, but it's not the antagonistic diet that's affecting their brain. We really do have a connection throughout our whole body.
Yeah,
We are not,
definitely.
it's not like, okay, you have a cardiac system all in a bubble. You have, a respiratory system all in a bubble. It's all related. And that's why we look at the body as a whole when we're trying to look at people, because we know one thing affects another and it's all interconnected.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd like to touch more about inflammation, because I know loads of people, even in my family, arthritis, it's all the inflammation that causes it. And it's the diet. And I keep telling them.
That is absolutely the facts. And
Yeah.
all diseases have inflammation at its core. And one of the really big things with inflammation is the icosanoid system. And that's like a big word. That's the type of essential fatty acids. The reason that there is a problem with the corn oils, the seed oils, and all the oils, the canola, and all those is because they have a lot of omega-6s in them. Even if they say, oh, they've got some omega-3s, they still have a lot of omega-6s. Your brain is made up of DHA, like the substrate. DHA is one of the fish oil or omega-3s that's in walnuts and, certain seeds, not the oils, because they take those out when they make it. But that's why I've been taking a fish oil for over 20 years, because the balance between omega-3s and 6s really affect your inflammation, because one of them is anti-inflammatory, one is pro-inflammatory. So when you're eating all these packaged goods, and thankfully they've had to label trans fats, because trans fats were the most dangerous for the body. They just literally, your inflammation went sky high when you would eat those. But when you're having a balance, when your balance of omega-3s to 6s is heavily omega-6s, that is inflammation driving. And so that's the biochemistry behind it, that it has all those things that start attacking the body. And that can also lead to the cortisol being up, because it's inflamed. It's anti-inflammatory, right? That's what cortisol is. So when you've got high inflammation, cortisol goes up. Well, when cortisol goes up, DHEA goes down. And that's the thing that rebuilds your cells. So it's just a vicious cycle of you've got to get the right inputs in you, because inflammation is at the root of so many chronic diseases.
Definitely.
And so I get very frustrated because I feel that all those chronic diseases are based in lifestyle choices. Some of them you have genetic markers. Don't get me wrong. I know that. But like me, I could have an ALS gene. I don't know that.
Yes.
But I'm not letting it turn on.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's just that we have the power to make better choices. And it takes, I'll be honest, it takes courage when you're out with somebody and they're like, let's go do this, let's go do that. And you're just like, no, I'm just going to have this. You have to go against the grain. You have to go against the grain of where people are, because honestly, it's so much easier just to go and eat what everybody's eating.
Yes.
And when you're out socially, they're just like, drink and eat and blah, blah, blah. And it's hard because you want to be there and do that. But you know what? You just have to be committed that you can, in most places, find something good to eat. And you can have one glass of red wine. That may not send you over the top. I personally can't really have a lot of alcohol. I've learned my body doesn't like that. I'm not real upset about it, but I can have one and I'm satisfied with that. A lot of people aren't satisfied with that. It's about changing your perception of what is right for you and just deciding what is your priority. Do you want to live a long, healthful lifespan? Or do you just want to be involved in the sick care, which is what I think modern medicine is? It's sick care. They don't get trained in nutrition. They don't get trained in, the things that make your body healthy. So I'm all about trying to make my health span long, not just my lifespan. And that's why, I have fun. I'm not like sitting there going, oh, I'm just going to stay at home and do this and do that. And I'm chained to, my broccoli and all that. No, there's so many good foods to eat. And the really good thing about your gut is variety. Give it good, organic in most cases. And, I use the clean or the dirty dozen as my guide. The Environmental Working Group puts out every year a clean 15 and a dirty dozen. The dirty dozen are always the things that are completely sprayed with all the chemicals. The clean 15 are the things you can eat conventionally grown. Well, I hate to say it, strawberries and spinach are always at the top of the dirty dozen.
Yes.
That's really scary because if I go to somebody's house and they have strawberries and berries, like blueberries aren't on there, raspberries aren't on there. So, I can pick and choose. But if they're just, people sometimes have just strawberries out because they're delicious.
Yes.
But you know what? I'm not going to be the jerk to say, are those organic? I'm just going to say, you know what? Unless I know who you are and I know what you buy, I'm just not going to eat that day. You know what I mean? And when you go to a restaurant that doesn't say they go by the dirty dozen, they'll have spinach. I'll ask them, is that organic? If not, you know what? I'll go to the arugula if they have arugula. There's choices to make that aren't too difficult, but you just have to be conscious and aware of what you're doing when you're doing it. And that leads into a whole mindfulness program, protocol. And, another thing to help your stress, to be honest, is start meditating.
Yes.
Start being mindful. Start listening to if you can't meditate, just focus on your breath. Breathe 4 in, hold for 7, breathe out for 8. That will completely take the stress out of you. I mean, I do that 4-7-8 breathing every night. I do it 4 or 5 times before I go to bed. It sets the pace for the slowdown and gets you to fall asleep better. There's things to make the parasympathetic stronger and try and reduce the stress. It's food, it's mindfulness, it's moving your body. I mean, when we build a protocol for somebody, we have a 5-prong thing called DRESS. It's diet, it's rest, it's exercise, it's stress reduction, and it's supplements. Because sometimes you're not getting, so you need to take some digestive enzymes. You might have a liver that's congested. Well, we'll give you liver support, and we'll learn what's working with your food through food sensitivities and, how you oxidize food through a metabolic typing so that you can eat the right foods for you. Because, if you have different, you oxidize food differently, how you process it and give it. They could have the same calcium, right? One person might need more and one might need less because it's all about you and how you oxidize food or metabolize food and what you get from it. So there's so many pieces of the puzzle, but the bottom line is start being mindful and make better choices. You can get out of a problem situation if you just start thinking about ways to do it better. There's always better. I can always do things better. There's always a way to sharpen your game and get better results.
Yeah, definitely. And I must admit, this year, myself, I'm already gluten-free. This year, I gave up sugar. I mean, every now and again, I will have sugar, but I'll have it in a whole food form. And the benefits of the energy is through the roof. I feel so much better. I cannot believe just eliminating sugar.
You've seen it.
Yeah.
Sugar is a big deal because it shoots your insulin up. Your insulin goes up, and that's inflammatory. I mean, that's the problem. There's so much. The human body is amazing.
Yeah,
it is
definitely.
Checks and balances all the time. Checks and balances. Negative feedback loops. All these things to keep homeostasis in check. And that's, what all the, that HPA axis that I talked about, that also has HPA thyroid, HPA, sex hormones. So it is the functional driver to our hormones. Well, when we go back to, are you digesting your food? Are you getting your amino acids to build the neurotransmitters that drive this? I mean, there's so much. Do you have enough hydrochloric acid in your stomach so that you can kill the pathogens before they reach your gut, and they can break down the food so that your body can use it? There's so many elements to it. You just have to get a really good view of what's going on in your body. And, that's why I like to do 5 or 6 tests on people to really see what's going on so that we can build the protocol, that dress protocol, and really look at the best foods for you, how to help you get your rest. Sleep is a very underappreciated thing. And a lot of people, not most, but a good percentage of people struggle with sleep, waking up in the middle of the night, not getting to bed at the right time. And the one thing I can say for that, because when you don't sleep, your satiation, your leptin and ghrelin, those are the 2 things that drive how hungry you are. And when you're full, those go out of whack. If you've ever noticed, if you get 4 or 5 hours of sleep one night, you're starving the next day because those are out of whack. So you've really got to learn to get your health in check through sleep and all these things. But one thing you can do for sleep, and it's really an easy thing to do, is try and get up at the same time every day and get up with the sun. Get the sun into your eyes. Not directly, of course. I'm not saying stare at the sun, but get the early sun, because that communicates. Your eyes are full of mitochondria. Mitochondria are the energy machines in your body. There's tons in your eyes. That will tell your body it's the beginning of the circadian day.
Yes.
And then as you go through, you get the blue light from the sky and all that. Well, then at night, you don't want to be on your tablets, your computers, your phones, because that blue light that you wanted in the morning is coming at you through those at night, and it's stopping your pineal gland from giving you melatonin. Yeah. So there's melatonin problems, and melatonin gets you sleepy. It doesn't keep you asleep, but it's not letting you get there. And so you sit there and say, I can't fall asleep. I can't fall asleep. So I highly recommend some blue block glasses after like 7 o'clock at night. And, it was funny. I was at a paleo conference the other day, and one of the people working at the booth with me had an orange tinted glass on his eyes. And he goes, I'm very sensitive. And this incandescent light, or these, this artificial light up here, I'm so affected by that I have orange. At night, I use red. I mean, there's all sorts of things. I thought these were good enough at night. He goes, that's 10 or 20%. I'm just like, oh, brother. But luckily, I have other strategies in place to make me have a better night's sleep. So luckily, I knock on wood all the time because I do sleep well, and I'm grateful for it. But I do prioritize it.
Yeah, and absolutely. I absolutely prioritize, because I think sleep is so underrated. The amount of people that go to sleep so late, and I was thinking, I can't do that. I always get up early. Whether it's a weekend, I get up at the same time, go to bed early. That's a good strategy. Yeah, and even if in the summer periods when it's light at night, I'll wear an eye mask.
Yeah, that's a really big deal, because you're being told by your body, stay awake. And it's really tricky, because honestly, it just, we have need to sleep.
Yes.
We have a real need to sleep. It's when our body repairs. It's when we collect all our memories of the day. I mean, that whole thing of if you study at night for a test, you sleep on it in the morning, it's going to be solid in your mind because your body was thinking and prioritizing.
Yeah, definitely.
So sleep is important. Food is important. Stress reduction is important. Moving your body during the day is important. That helps our bodies get, all the movement, and it helps your, lymphatic system move and drain and all that stuff. So there's a lot to, we were supposed to be eating well, moving well, sleeping well, not stressing out, getting our nutrition from the food, but our soils are deplete, which is why we have to support them with supplements that are giving us what we're missing. There's just so many points to this healthful journey that we're on, honestly.
Absolutely. And the lymphatic system is so important to weight loss as well. And I don't think people realize that.
That's a big deal. It's
definitely.
Behind your circulatory system, and it's got all the waste. And you need to get that moving, and dry brushing and just movement helps that so much. That's why moving, even just a good steady walk, is going to help. And moving your arms, because you've got lots in your armpits, and, dry brushing, and you always dry brush from your feet up to your heart so that it pushes it out. And, it's an important part for real. It really does. You've got to keep that moving, because if that gets stuck, that can mess up your lymph nodes, and then if your lymph nodes are full of stuff, you're going to have, strep throat. You're going to have something growing that's not supposed to grow. I mean, it's really important to get all these. It's like all the tubes in your body need to flow very well.
Absolutely.
Your circulatory system, your respiratory system, your lymphatic system, everything needs to be there. And, you've got to keep a balance of cortisol and DHEA so you get all the hormones and all the anti-inflammation in your body. I mean, it's really a full court press if you think about it.
Yes, and definitely if you just listen to your actual body, it will tell you everything you need to listen to.
You are so right. We have been deaf to our bodies, but it tells you exactly what it needs. And the other thing about it too is every cell in your body knows what to do.
Yes.
It doesn't need to be told what to do. It just needs the right nutrition and inputs, and it will do it, which is why you can have a lot of things going in your body going wrong. But if you stop all the things that are causing it to be that way, stop the blockades of health slowly. I mean, it could take somebody a year to get their gut back because it was really messed up. It didn't take just a few months to make that. So you've got to be patient. But honestly, we can get people feeling so much better just by listening to their bodies and putting the right inputs in and just slowing down.
Definitely. What resources do you recommend, daily tools, steps to anyone who wants to achieve and optimize their health?
I think that honestly, they need to try and sleep well. So get a good regimen at bedtime. Go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time, and just try and get sunlight in you. That's the first step. Sunlight in the morning, and let the, sunset, unless it's high, summer and it doesn't go down at a good time, let it train your body when it is time to be up and when it is time to be down. Look into your food and make sure you're eating whole foods that don't have pesticides on them. Follow Environmental Working Group and learn the Dirty Dozen. And I mean, I could read it off. I can read off the Dirty Dozen because I carry a little thing in my purse right here. That's the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So the Dirty Dozen has strawberries, spinach, kale, collard, and mustard greens are all number 3. Nectarines, apples, grapes, cherries, peaches, pears, bell and hot peppers, celery, and tomatoes. That is a lot of the food that we want to be consuming, because those are all the fruits and vegetables that we need for our bodies. Those need, especially in America, to be organic. And then the clean 15 are avocados, sweet corn, pineapple, onions, papaya, sweet peas, the frozen ones, eggplant, asparagus, broccoli, cabbage, kiwi, cauliflower, mushrooms, honeydew melon, and cantaloupe. So there are still things that you don't need because they grow so well. They don't need to do things to them.
Yes, absolutely.
But, do that. And then try and breathe slowly throughout the day. Take 5 minutes or do 5-minute box breathing. You breathe in for 5, hold it for 5, breathe out for 5, wait to begin for 5. So breathe in, hold, breathe out, wait. It's a 5 block. Just do that 5 times throughout the day, and that will get your body to slow down. And so those are the resources to slow down, sleep, exercise, go for a walk. Those are the things. And honestly, if you're not eating a lot of fish, find a really good, pure, tested fish oil, because that's a big thing.
Yes, that's excellent. So where can the listeners find you, Mary?
I am online on Instagram at Get Healthy with, which is just a W, Maryann, that's Maryann. And then my email is Maryann at eternalwellnessllc.com. And that's where I am. I'm going to have a website soon, but for now, that's where you can find me.
Okay. And that all your information will be in the show notes, so people can contact you instantly.
Perfect.
Thank you for sharing your deep, insightful wisdom and knowledge with us today, Maryann May.
Oh, I am so grateful for the opportunity. I am so passionate about it, and I know people can do anything and everything for their health. It's so much about making a choice and a commitment to yourself that you want to get better.
Excellent. So I have a couple of questions, my last few questions for you, which I ask all my guests. What is one of the most courageous things you've done?
Well, I think it goes back about almost 9 years ago when I lost my high school sweetheart husband.
Oh, bless.
And so I had 2 young girls, and honestly, I was overwhelmed and I didn't know how I was going to do it. And one day when I was just about to have, I remember so clearly just leaning on my counter in my bathroom about to have a panic attack. And I just said, I am not a victim. And I just stood in my place and said, we are going to do this, and we are going to hold our head high, and we are going to get these girls all the help they need, and we are going to live our best life. And that was a very scary thing, to come out of the shrine of sadness that I felt and blast forward. And honestly, it was my gratitude path. I lived on the gratitude path, and that was the thing that changed my life. So having a gratitude practice is important, but that was, I was really scared to be on my own. I was scared to do this. I was thinking I was going to move back home, but I had my community where I was, and I just had to rise up and, take charge of my life. And, I'm glad to say almost 9 years later, I'm doing just that, and my girls are great. So I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really a traumatic thing, real sudden, but we're on the other side of it, and we live with it, and we help it promote us forward.
Well, that's excellent. So we are all about Create the Courage to be Fearless podcast. So what is your definition of courage?
My definition of courage is finding your voice, no matter what it is that's against you, and standing firm in your shoes and doing what you know is right, regardless of what's going to happen to you for doing it. It's like stepping out and really living bravely, like living and doing things, even if you're afraid, because if you don't try it, you don't know what you're missing.